Hey folks, welcome to Money Spaces with me, Kalu Aja. Welcome wherever you are listening from. My name is Kalu Aja, and I'm glad to have you all here this evening. Today we are going to talk agriculture, technology, and finance around those topics, right? And we have guests today in the house. We have the guys from AFEX, that's Nigeria's commodity exchange. They are here with us and we are glad to have them. And we're going to just talk with them about that intersection I've spoken about, agri, tech, and finance. And they have a hackathon. So if you're a tech guy, tech babe out there, you want to hang and basically just listen to what they want to say, I think you will find it very interesting. So my pleasure to welcome Esther Miller. She's here already. I'm expecting Michael Martins as well. Esther, you want to unmute and say hi to the folks out there?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Hi, Kalu. Good evening.
How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. Happy Sunday. It's great to be here.
Great, great, great. Good to have you here as well.
Thank you. Quick one though before we go. It's Afex, not Affects.
ooh, Apex, Apex.
Afex. Yes.
Vowels, right? Apex. I hear you. Yeah. All right. No worries. Apex.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So, welcome to the show. We talk here. It's going to be personal finance, the economy, and money, and we always want to make it personal. So everything we say, we want to break it down so that the folks can say, how does this affect my wallet? That's essentially what we're doing. So I'm adding Michael right in here so he can also introduce himself. But let me just start with you. Can you just tell us about, Ms. Miller, can you just tell us about Afex? What do you guys do? To the casual observer, what do you guys do? What do you guys want to achieve? Just give us that intro.
Okay, so for the benefit of this today's conversation and topic, I would just say that we operate as a commodities exchange amongst many other things.
Mm,
Um, we power and use different and several types of initiatives. Um, and with technology in mind as well to create platforms that benefits the entire commodities value chain, right? So from agriculture and everything in between
mm,
that has to facilitate like the growth of Africa's food systems and and the likes, right? So essentially, to the casual observer, as you said.
That works. So essentially, you guys are like in the middle. I'm a farmer and there's a buyer. You guys
Mm-hmm.
sit in that middle and create that ecosystem. You make it work. If I want,
Yes, we make it holistic, we make it productive, we make it,
I like
yes, exactly.
I like that. All right. So we've got your our co-host in here. Hi, you want to say hi, Mr. Michael?
Hi, Kalu. Hi, Esther. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael. Lovely to be here.
Great, 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 Michael. I'm just going to jump right in and just ask you my questions. Like, how does commodity exchange, how do they help the economy and how do they help me as an investor, right? If right now in Nigeria, inflation is about 2%, how can AFEX help me? And also, how do they help the economy?
Uh, Hi, Kalu. Thanks a lot for that question. And it's a very deep question. It might take a bit of unbundling, so just stay with me as much as possible, right? Um, so like Esther said at the beginning, right? We primarily started as an exchange. This was way back in the year 2012, and fundamentally the work of the exchange is to help facilitate trade, right? And this is between the suppliers of commodities and the buyers of commodity. In between that is where we then also leverage technology and then also different financial market products
Mm,
to allow both retail and institutional investors also partake in the market. So they act essentially as supplier they act essentially as supplier of capital into the market.
yeah.
In terms of how the exchange helps the economy, I'm going to use AFEX as I'm going to use AFEX as a sample as a sample exchange. So take for example, we started in the year 2012 as a commodities exchange, and fundamentally the question we were trying to address at the time was, how do we ease the conversion of capital into commodities
Mm-hmm.
and commodities back into capital, right?
Okay.
When we started, there was also a need to build up the supply side of the market. And the supply side of the market today is largely smallholder farmers. They account for more than 90% of today's total agricultural production, and that's across both grains and export commodities and basically every other type of production that we have.
Mm.
So on one side, we helped to build up that part of the market in terms of our ability to provide access to inputs, access to fertilizers, access to training. That's just one side of the market, correct? The other side of the market is also where, because of our ability to build out that supply side, part of the market, we
Yeah.
then open up that market to buyers, right? So processors like, ground cereals like Olam, just to name drop a few,
Yeah.
essentially now have a flurry of different sellers that they can buy from at any point in time. But in addition to all of that, is that this already normally happens in any given commodities market. The advantage to the exchange is that that entire process is essentially standardized and it's
Yeah.
formalized, right? And because it's formalized, that's where we can then start introducing, let's say, retail and small and small. Retail and institutional investors, and the basic difference between both of them is just the amount of capital that they're able to provide,
Mm.
right? These people can then partake in the market in terms of being able to buy commodity products like spot contracts, like ETC products, like fixed income products, and then also futures products, which essentially is just an avenue to make money based off of the price differential of commodities. And how essentially that's how essentially the average Nigerian can sort of also partake in the market. So on one side, yes, we help improve the whole poverty landscape for smallholder farmers being the majority of the suppliers in the market.
Yeah.
On the other side, we also have buyers who essentially buy these commodities and process them into final products, which,
Yeah.
I mean, basically 80 to 90%, if not all of us consume today in terms of conflicts and final product.
Gotcha.
And that makes, those products essentially cheaper, there's better quality, better quantity, standardization and specialization.
I hear
And
you.
then in the middle of that is where, you then have the middle players like retail and institutional investors like yourself and myself.
So,
Yeah. So,
so for me, like, how does it help me? Like, if I have money, banks inflation
okay.
10%, food inflation 24%, can I invest? How does it help me?
Yeah, so think about it like this: the way we currently compute inflation, and I would argue, I mean, obviously it's the same way across, most countries in the world, is that we take into account certain commodities or certain final products in that food basket, and then we track their prices and how they've changed over time. That's essentially what we call inflation, right? What most people don't understand is that a lot of the raw materials that is used in those final products are essentially commodities that are traded in both the formal exchange commodity market and also the informal commodity markets, right? So meaning that if I buy that raw material itself, whether I'm buying that directly from the market or I'm buying that through spot contracts, I'm able to protect myself because essentially what the inflation is measuring is the change that has already happened in the commodities market. I don't know if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I'm buying a commodity itself, I'm more or less buying that commodity as an edge against inflation, meaning that whatsoever will translate in inflation in the next month or 2 months or 3 months would ideally have already happened in the commodities market like a
Uh,
month before. So if I buy a commodity today, the odds are that if that commodity goes up by 10% price, the price, let's say for example maize, if I buy that commodity today and it goes up by 10% price, the price of conflicts, which is the eventual, finished product, can essentially go up by 5%. But that will happen in the next 2 or 3 months. I hope that makes a lot of
so
sense.
it's
So people essentially
controlling the
think,
inflation. If I'm buying it
yeah,
pre-inflation, more or less. So
exactly.
before it gets to food, before the food goes up, I bought at a low price and I can sell when inflation hits the market. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. So it's commodities are bought as a hedge against inflation. That's how essentially the average person can sort of take advantage of the price movements in the market. Obviously, inflation takes into account way more factors and condiments than just food prices and commodity prices, but they're a significant portion of the computation itself.
I hear.
So yeah.
Okay, so I also hear, I don't know if we can choose that. Let me ask you real quick before we get into the crux of the matter. What are the challenges, right? I know farmers in my village in Ohafia, we have a lot of cassava in the ground. We can't get the cassava to market. And the guys in Lagos and Aba want gari, and they don't have any gari. So that from village to city, What are the distinct challenges that you see? I mean, I see logistics clearly. There are no roads like good roads in my village. There's no train to take it to Lagos. What do you see in terms of the challenges around getting food from where it's grown, the paddy from Kirby to Lagos, the kaftan from my village to Lagos? What do you see?
Okay.
Yeah, please. Esther, do you want to take that?
Yes, yes,
I
actually,
did.
because yes, because this is very much I would say a cultural issue, right?
Mm,
The things that people know is what's going to determine the actions that they take.
mm,
Like you said, the farmers in your village, there's a high chance that they do not have the knowledge of, things like the necessary data they need to make the right decisions regarding how they take actions on their farms. If they should buy more of this, if they should
mm,
buy less of this, like logistics, as you said, taking things from your village due to things and situations like bad roads, and everything else in between. And then when they actually get to the market, being able to negotiate the best prices for their commodities to continue to grow or develop their businesses or their farming practices. So that's where we come in between as well, because while we're even trying to bridge the gap between the farmers and the final consumers. Okay, this is processors included,
mm,
manufacturers included. We also have to factor in creating platforms and facilities that help these farmers understand and everybody have consistent communication among the value chain. Everybody who is a player in the value chain has a consistent communication between each other, right?
yeah.
So we create facilities, we promote, or we try to or aim to incubate systems or solutions like that. And that's where, the Code Cash Crop comes in, the Ag Hackathon comes in, Impu financing and disbursement programs, that's where they come in.
Mm.
So, yes, so this is it.
Esther, talk to me about that. Talk to me about the hackathon. I just have a passing knowledge of it. What's it about? What does it try to do? Just talk to me about that.
Okay, so I can't talk about the Ag Hackathon without talking about Code Cash Crop.
Mhm,
Code Cash Crop is a platform that we've created to facilitate conversations between every player, every key stakeholder in the agricultural value chain,
mm,
right? So this is from farmers to the technologists to everyone who is in whatever business that somehow, some way plays within that value chain, right?
mhm.
So by facilitating these conversations, we're talking about it. After talking, what's the next step? We have to create solutions
Got
to these problems, because you can talk and talk and talk and keep talking, but if there are no solutions, So yes, the Ag Hackathon then comes into play at that point, where we aim to incubate some solutions from the general public, of course, people who have great, awesome, innovative ideas, sending in their suggestions, their ideas, their proposals, and they be a part of something that actually drives change, positive change,
mm.
in our food systems.
Not just the talk, but get the work done. No, we move
Get the work done.
with
Exactly.
diversification. Every year since I was born, the government wants to diversify into agriculture every year, and somehow every year ends with food being more expensive than the past year. So I'm really hoping that we can maybe here do that tech, agri, finance. There's a synergy there, and I want us to crack it, right? But let me go back to Michael. Michael, so just walk with me. What are the drivers in terms of pricing of commodity markets? And let me ask my question like this. The new president has said it's going to be a minimum pricing for agricultural products. He said it during the inauguration. That means that, for instance, farmers that maybe farm paddy rice, the government will put a floor underneath them. It's not a new novel idea, but government will basically guarantee you a price. So if you grow your crops, you can sell at this minimum price. How does that play into a free market, like a market-driven pricing framework that I know that the AFEX and the Com Exchange is basically trying to create? Does it distort? Does it help? If I invest in paddy rice, does that create a floor for me on a free market for the demand and supply? Can you just walk me around that?
Thanks a lot, Carly. To be honest, right, it's sort of like, we're trying to bundle. So I'm gonna try and unbundle the question into three different parts. So on
Mm,
one side is, what are the key drivers of commodity prices today
yeah.
in any given commodity markets. Secondly, is also that the new initiative of the new government administration, what are the implications of that on the market,
Yeah.
and how does that translate into some of the in some of the products that we do have on the exchange today in terms of return on investment for the average individual, right?
Yeah.
Um, the first is so typically for any commodity, right? The first thing that sort of determines the commodity price itself is its own, attendant supply and demand, right? And obviously, by the law of economics, that is pretty much straightforward. By the time you have more supply than demand, which is typically what you have for most of the grains that we trade on the exchange today in the fourth quarter of the year, which is when they're harvested, prices tend to be low essentially. And essentially over the course of the quarter, that volume diminishes significantly, and then you have way more demand than supply, and prices tend to rise,
Yeah.
correct? Secondly, is also you have currency movements, right? So this largely plagues export commodities that have international price exposure, right? So if your currency gets devalued, if your currency gets devalued, the price of that commodity goes up, and if your currency gets overvalued, in a manner of speaking, your currency, your commodity also loses value. Third would also be, like you've mentioned before, the cost of transporting these commodities from areas where they're produced to areas where they're actively consumed. So if you use Nigeria as an example today, most of the grains that we consume as a country today are produced up north, either the northwest or northeastern region, and most of that processing capacity is in the southern part of the country, meaning that there's a logistics element
Mm.
of moving those commodities from the north where they're produced to the south where they're mostly processed and consumed, right? So the transportation cost of moving those commodities is incredibly important in determining the final price.
Okay.
Another thing that could also impact commodity prices today in terms of driving the price is also storage costs, right? So in areas where you have huge storage cost, in areas where you have a very high storage capacity,
Mm.
high storage capacity means that there's lower storage cost, and lower storage capacity means there's higher storage cost, right? Meaning that the average warehouse owner will charge you a whole lot more when there are not that many competing, warehouses available to store your commodities. Last, which I think is obviously not least, is Mother Nature itself, right? So weather, climatic conditions can also really affect the amount of volume that is produced in any given commodity season, which then subsequently influences the price, correct? So this is a case of if you have a lot of flooding in a particular value chain, which is very common in the rice value chain, that would impact the volume that is produced, and then also the subsequent price of that commodity at harvest or over the course of the entire commodity season, right?
Gotcha.
So those are sort of like the biggest factors that drive commodity price in any given market, correct? In terms of the new initiative that the government is trying to institute today, they're easier said than done. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the entire commodities landscape in Africa today, commodity boards are typically instituted across export commodities, mainly export commodities. And there's a reason why that is. It's because export commodities obviously they have a huge, they contribute a huge value to the economy in terms of their ability to attract foreign exchange earnings. So they're incredibly important, to each country that exports them. Secondly, is also that for export commodities in comparison to grains or staples, the market is more organized and there's a tendency towards commercialization. So meaning that you would have a very small array of players producing a significant portion of the output, meaning that it's then easier to control them
Mm.
as opposed to having 9, 10, 12 million different smallholder farmers, and you trying to control the price of each of each individual, the
Yeah.
price of the output of each individual smallholder farmer, correct? Now with that being said, the implications of a commodity board essentially would be a minimum price. And the reason why the government is trying to do that, obviously, is to try and transfer enough of the value of that commodity back to the smallholder farmer who is directly responsible for producing them on day one. Correct. Is to say that today, because of the lack of market infrastructure, the government is then trying to institute a minimum price. So let's say, for example, maize is produced at 100,000 tons at the beginning of the season. The government can institute a minimum price of, let's say, 150,000 per ton to make sure that the farmer, and this is just a sample this is just a sample, right? To make sure that the farmer makes approximately 50%. Now, the implications of this is that it will be incredibly more difficult for exchanges to design financial products that will guarantee any sort of gain in a manner of speaking. You also have to imagine that by the time that price is fixed, the processor who is on the other end of that market is not also incentivized rather to buy that commodity at that price. So it's incentivized incredibly to look for alternatives, either directly in the local market in terms of smuggling, either regionally in terms of smuggling in from other countries, or either importing directly from abroad. Which and of course that takes into account whatever the prevailing government whatever the prevailing government policy is on imports, right? That incredibly makes it way more difficult. What is ideal, correct, in any given market, what is sustainable, I should also say, is an open market that promotes a sort of fair and transparent pricing, and a market that is developed enough to make sure that enough of the value of the commodity that is produced by smallholder farmers is eventually transferred back to them. Today, on the exchange, we facilitate this through the storage infrastructure that we have. Let me explain. If a farmer produces 1 ton today, most of the time, because of the nature of his because of the nature of his socioeconomics, he is forced to sell off that volume on day one. Whereas that same commodity can essentially grow from 100,000 to 150,000, but it doesn't capture any part of that upside. The way the exchange currently facilitates that value capture for that smallholder farmer today is to provide a reputable storage infrastructure to say, look, yes, I know you have yes, I know you produced a ton, but can you sell off 0.5 tons today and keep 0.5 ton to make sure that you can sell them off at a higher price in the future?
Who who
Correct?
who owns
That's how they
the stuff in storage? The farmer or Apex? Who owns the stuff in storage?
Apex owns the storage infrastructure. So we would charge them is stipend on a monthly basis for the volume that is kept in our warehouses. Correct. That's fundamentally how the exchange currently helps to transfer value back to the smallholder farmer, as opposed to what the government is trying to do today. And maybe at the end of the day, maybe we may be able to find more of a middle ground. The more advanced, the more slightly complicated element involved in the transfer of that value is what we call futures prices today, derivatives, right? Which is basically to say, yes, farmer can produce that 1 ton, but then he can sell that 0.5 ton, which he's keeping, he can sell it at a forward future price. Doesn't currently exist in huge volumes today on the market, and we hope to be able to institute that over the course of the next coming month. Those market mechanisms, in comparison to a government board, are far more efficient in comparison to, let's say, what the government is trying to do today with regards to trying to fix minimum prices for commodities. Yeah, I hope I didn't lose you, because that explanation is quite a lot. I'm
Yeah,
really
no,
sorry.
No, at all.
at all. And just what I get from there, right, is this, right? If I have cassava in my village and I have 1,000 tons of cassava in my village, because I have to sell it immediately, I
Yes.
sell it for 10,000 naira. When cassava price goes up, when the demand
Yeah.
harvest is over, the guy that buys
Yes.
from me gets the differential in price.
Exactly. Exactly.
But if I'm able to
Exactly.
cassava to your warehouse and I keep it there and I pay you rent in quotes, right? I can keep
Yes.
my cassava throughout the year and I get more money, right? Because I'm now
Exactly.
okay. And the government's own side is saying, irrespective, when I sell my cassava immediately, I'm going to get
Hmm.
a minimum price. But you
Yes.
in the market side and saying, no, we're not going to give you, we're going to guarantee that you can sell throughout the year. So you take advantage of. Okay, I get it. I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it. Let me come to Esther. Esther, we have this challenge. And again, I like you to just like Michael has talked about the challenge about the infrastructure storage.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
Let's start with the data challenge. I read it up.
Mm-hmm.
What you guys put up. Walk me through it. Give me the problem. Tell me what you guys want to solve and what you want. Let's do it that way. I don't know if you want to do all three at once or if you want to take it one after the other. It's your call.
Okay, so we can start with the data challenge, of course. If we take a look today at our agricultural market and the infrastructures in place from private or public, um, public or private individuals, companies, whatever it is the government wants to do or private individuals want to do, there is still a gap in data like that would allow for informed decision making for by these farmers. at the end of the day is what they know, as I said earlier, and as Michael also pointed out, that they would be able to act on or act upon. So, with the data challenge for the Ag Hackathon, to be precise, we would be looking forward to seeing innovative ideas and solutions that will try to bridge this gap, and make sure that farmers have access to information that would allow for precision agricultural activities. Like, imagine a situation where your farmer in your village, for example, can monitor market trends. He knows how much maize is going for that season, how much it could potentially go for, and he could make the informed decision of taking his commodities or his crops to the nearest Apex warehouse, as an example. So, so solutions like this do not just benefit the value chain or the processors or Apex. It's, at the end of the day, it's about the impact it's making in the productivity of the smallholder farmer, which is your farmer in your village.
So yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah,
Essentially what I see here is that right now the guy in my village does not have any pricing mechanism. He doesn't know what cassava is sold outside or half year. He doesn't know what.
no, until sorry to cut you off there, but what we do see now,
Mm,
because you did mention to a challenge that they could be facing. What we
yep.
see now is middlemen who go on, let me use a little slight, they go on vibes, right? They're powered by okay, they decide whatever price they want it to go for. They they facilitate the sale between the farmer and maybe an international buyer or a buyer from the city, and then they create whatever price they want, and they keep the difference. And I mean, it's a system
All
and it's been working for them, but is it beneficial to the smallholder farmer
right.
who is the actual producer of that commodity? That's, if it's not beneficial to them, then productivity is going to be stalled, and that's essentially the crux of the problem. At the foundation of it, if we're trying to feed everybody in Africa, or if we're making the attempt to feed everybody in Africa, then the people who are producing the food
Mm,
need to be attended to,
all
and
right.
not on a small or minute type of situation. It has to be sustainable. It has to be efficient.
Gotcha. So in this case now with the data challenge, you want to create a price data mining database, which means that my farmer
Exactly.
go there, type in cassava, and it will give him the price of cassava as at today because it's going to be live on mobile and the web. And that becomes
Yes.
the price of, just like I will go in and price maybe crypto or stocks, but this time now for commodities. So if I know that cassava is so amount, it can help me make my pricing decisions or my selling decisions or even what to plant next season. So
Yes, this system already exists because it does power some of the processes that happen day to day, or the systems that happen day to day, or that are necessary for Effect's day to day activities. We would just like to see innovative ideas for the Ag Hackathon, to be more precise, from the people who do need this. They need this. They need these systems to be in place, because if I can't eat, you can't eat. We all can't eat. It affects everyone. It
all
affects
right.
everybody. Yes.
So data challenge is about creating a pricing network where I can create something to do with pricing. I got that. What about the one about this is the called the extension. And I'm reading it, it's talking
Mm.
about farmers need active ingredients and all that. Walk me through that. What does that mean? You're talking about low yields and you want to develop a USSD application. Walk me through the extension part of the hack. What you guys want to do with that?
Okay, so an extension-based solution would exist, I wouldn't say exclusively from the internet, but we need to consider that so many parts of Nigeria, not just Nigeria, Africa as a whole, because our services have, of course, extended beyond the borders of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like, we are expecting solutions to be submitted from Kenya, and we do have fair trade services running in Uganda as well. So if we create a USSD based solution, it would be easier for farmers who do not have the best access to internet service to get knowledge on solutions or anything that they need. If they need knowledge on maybe what's okay, let's say as an example, they go to the market and they're trying to buy fertilizer or they're trying to buy something and they don't have knowledge or information about it, it would affect the quality of what they go ahead to get.
Okay.
But if they do have that knowledge, then they will be able to buy what they need and understand what they are buying or what they are purchasing. So with knowledge, there's also support. So having access to these and considering the disparity or the lack of internet access, which is the best way I can explain it, because there are so many factors that actually go into play. A USSD based or an extension based solution would make provision for that, right? And for this Ag Hackathon, to be precise, as I mentioned, it's a cross-border. We're very much looking forward to cross-border solutions, like things that can go beyond the borders of Nigeria, right? And if it's going to work in Nigeria, it has to also consider the possibility of working in Kenya and in Uganda and every other country that would need it, because this is an Africa thing. It's not Nigeria. This is Africa. We are trying to feed Africa. So yes.
My own
That
layman,
being said, that is exactly what the extension challenge is all about.
my
In simple terms.
my own layman understanding, is it going to be like it's like my own Google for farming? If I want to farm, say in Kebbi, I can find out the kind of fertilizer to use in Kebbi soil to grow this particular kind of rice. Is that what the extension challenge is going to give me?
Yes, that's a very interesting angle you mentioned there, Kalu. Like there's so many ways it could go. There's so many things you could provide for, even support, right? There's support as well, yes. But that's a very interesting angle, and yes, that could work as well.
All right, and then the last one is the one I think it's called the logistics. Let me make sure I get it right. It's the logistics.
Yes, the logistics challenge.
Yeah, that one I find interesting because I was speaking to a farmer. I don't know if he's here, the farmer boy. He's usually on the spaces, and he was telling me he had a lot of products, and he saw there were a lot of silos that were not working or were bad, and he was trying to raise funds, right, to go fix the silos to use. And here you're talking about essentially a proposal that will create a warehousing solution to enable farmers request for storage and logistics. So I like it. Let's talk more about this.
Yes, as you know, if you look into the solutions that Apex provides, as Michael had also mentioned earlier, there's the storage provision that has to come into play for the entire value chain to work productively, seamlessly. And with the logistics challenge, it's a situation like I would, even though it's not exactly the same thing, but just for general understanding and for clarity, I would use the Uber example, right? So imagine being able to uh, go on your mobile phone or whichever way the solution designer or the innovator wants to go with the solution or how they want to tackle that challenge. They could go on their phones or their mobile devices and request for a storage space, so cubic meters. They need to store this amount of grains or this many sacks of grains, and then they request for the space. They then it's a scheduled time. They request for logistics. If they don't have that, it comes over, picks up the commodities and takes it back to the warehouse. So imagine a very seamless situation like that. So we're looking forward to seeing innovative solutions that could power and support the inefficiencies that currently exist within that part of the entire system, which is the logistics, the logistics system, moving something from one place to the other.
Okay.
I mean, this particular situation or challenge exists anywhere, any other form of business anybody wants to do, moving oil from the port to another state or in any other situation, right? But think of how much it affects the agricultural value chain, considering that this is food that goes on the table and people have to eat and processors have to create products, and everything else in between.
Okay, I got a comment on Twitter, and the gentleman, Agbero Loba, is basically saying, Michael, this might be for you, that NAERLS has a system that is responsible to inform farmers on price range, seed quality, and other services. But he says it's not feasible enough. I don't know if you know what the NAERLS is. Maybe gentleman could put more context. And that's what he said. That's just a feedback that we have this, but it's not really quote unquote working for us, right? So maybe the private sector coming in through Apex will then put some ginger into that and we can get it going. But Michael, if I were to come to you, right, Esther's done a great job in just talking to us about these three challenges. And I see where you guys are going. It's pretty smart, right? Because if I have land and I don't know what to farm, I can go to the data quote unquote page and get the pricing of commodities that are exporting or are selling more, if you use that terminology. And I could then start to farm or invest in that commodity. Then the extension, at least I want to know what sort of fertilizer. Should I go and buy urea fertilizer from Dangote or should I go get Notori fertilizer? So extension comes in there. And also when I now get my product, I can go to the logistics side of it and I can say, okay, I have all this produce. Where can I store it? So I can take advantage, like you've spoken about, of the whole value chain. So data, extension, logistics under the CCC Cash Crop 4.0 and the hackathon, great point. Can we link this now, right, into exports? I know it's sort of a curveball there, but Nigeria right now has got to get forex in. I don't know if you look at our balance sheet, where technically, in terms of foreign exchange, we might be broke, right? How can this power, say, exports for the guys listening that want to just make some dollars, right? Because fuel price is now 500 naira, and I'm going back to that wallet thing. How can we link this, right? There's an opportunity here for the IT folks, but how can the guy that just wants to invest his naira to make money? Is there something in here for us that can push exports or second, multiple streams of income? What do you say, Mike?
Thanks, Carly, for that question. Right. And to be honest, it's not a straight line. To be honest, right. So on one hand, you've talked extensively about how we're able to, the effectiveness with which we're able to provide data to smallholder farmers so that they can know what to farm,
Yeah,
and then from there on in, involve logistics to then being able to seamlessly move that commodity from where they're produced to where they eventually consumed. But with exports, things become slightly more difficult. And the reason why that is because so first of all, there are huge infrastructural issues within our ports today,
yeah,
meaning that if I take, let's say, let's say what's a truck of cocoa today, let's say like 30 tons of cocoa, and I want to export that today, right? If I take that to the port, even if it takes, let's say, about 30 days for in any given time scenario, right? For that commodity to go from Nigeria to, let's say somewhere in Europe, right? So let's say like Switzerland, that takes a lot of coffee and whatnot and all of that. If you take it to a Nigerian port, you can be rest assured that they will probably not get it until maybe 90 or 120 days,
wow,
right? Essentially, what that means is that there's about a 1 month to 2 months, sometimes even 3 months lag between what is ideal and what eventually plays out in the
mhm,
export market, right? Secondly, is also because of that, most of the contracts in the export markets, they are essentially free on board, meaning that they're essentially paid against shipping documents. Meaning that the minute I supply that commodity to the port, I essentially want to get my money back, or I'm essentially paid for that commodity. But the problem with that is, even though you're getting instant settlement, it sort of limits the volume of contracts that you're able to do, since most buyers want to see the eventual product anyways before they essentially pay for it. So ideally, what that means is that if a buyer ideally could buy 1,000 tons, because most of the contracts that we can structure, even what is essentially advantageous to the seller, is also a free on board type of contract, meaning immediate settlement, it will only do 100 tons. So that sort of, because of those infrastructure issues, that immediately limits the amount of volume, do you understand, that we can essentially push out of the country at any given period of time. But to circle back to quote unquote the original conversation about pricing and productivity for the average smallholder farmer. Now, ordinarily speaking, one would expect that the entire and ordinarily speaking, if you look at, let's say, certain countries that have commodity boards for some of the commodities that they produce. So let's say, for example, you take Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, correct, and then they have commodity boards for an export commodity like cocoa. That sort of works for them, but it's not even as effective as they would want it to be. So essentially, today, if you want to buy cocoa in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, there's a price premium that is attached to whatever the base price of that commodity is, correct? And essentially what that does is, like I said, is to attempt to transfer as much of that value to the producer as much as possible, which is most of the time smallholder farmer, correct? But that essentially doesn't work because yeah, we have to. If you take a step back, right, the farmer's fundamental problem is not price.
Mm.
The farmer's fundamental problem is productivity. There's a saying in South America, right, which is another huge agricultural region, right? Market is the best fertilizer, and let me explain what that means. Don't necessarily just give me a high price for my commodity, because in any given case, because of the supply and demand of commodities, and also because most of the commodities that we produce in this part of the world in Africa are seasonal, they undulate back and forth anyways. So meaning that at some point, even if the prices go up, they typically would reverse during harvest period. But if I have a market for my commodity, that essentially motivates me to improve my productivity as an average smallholder farmer.
Yes.
So that essential incentive is the difference between a farmer going from 100,000. So take for example, if the only thing you're able to provide is just higher pricing, correct? Is the difference between a farmer going from 100,000 naira in terms of the money that he's able to make to 120,000 because prices have now been fixed and set, or because the price of commodities went up, as opposed to that smallholder farmer being able to double his productivity because he knows that there is a market for it. Does that make sense? Because like even if let's say today, we were to double the volume of the volume of export commodities in the country, the other side of the market, because of the infrastructural issue, is not available. There's no market access for that product for that production, right? So meaning that even if you were to double our productivity today, there's nowhere to sell that volume to because of the huge infrastructural issues at our port. When those issues are fixed, that provides a wide array of market access that motivates and incentivizes producers, whether smallholder farmers or traders or everybody in between, to increase their productivity so that it can essentially go from not just 100,000 to 120,000, which is a 20% increase reflective of price, but from like 100,000 to 200,000, which will be more reflective of their agricultural productivity, which then circles back to my original comment that the farmer's fundamental problem today is not necessarily price. There are huge structural fundamental issues that need to be resolved, and and of course that essentially also ties back to the market access that the smaller farmer is able
And
to
Mike,
access.
that's a mind blowing comment there. So what you're saying is that if the price of cassava doubles, more cassava will be grown.
Exactly. Exactly, pretty much.
Wow.
But the pricing is not his biggest problem. Yeah, so let's take for example, let's say he makes 90% today, this season. What's the guarantee that he's going to make that same 90% next year?
Gotcha.
There's literally no guarantee. Or the subsequent year. There's literally no guarantee. But if I can double my production as a cassava farmer, for example, it doesn't matter what the price is. My income essentially goes up regardless.
Hmm.
Right. Even if the price were to fall by 5-10%, by the time I double that 90,000 naira to 180,000 naira, I'm still 80% above where I was last year. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're not disconnected or disaffected from the price mechanism. But what's fundamentally more important for us as a country, whether that for exports or staples, is our ability to provide significantly improve our productivity, and then also subsequently fix the structural issues that provide market access for that increased volume. That's the huge problem that needs to be resolved, not necessarily a pricing issue.
Okay, that's a good point. Good point there. Let me ask you two quick questions. I want to get Esther back in. Let me ask you two quick questions. Number one, Pascal is asking, can investors partner with Afex in locations you don't have like a warehouse? But if he has a warehouse, can they partner with you? If they can, please send it to DM or whatever and I'll share to him or just post it. If you're not in the location, but an investor has got a warehouse in that location, would you partner with them? That's one question. The other question is asking, how does Apex ensure quality control? He doesn't want farmers with infested grain to affect his own product that doesn't have any insects in them. So do you guys have like a modern warehouse and all that kind of stuff? So that's from Teki and from Perspective. Do that real quick. I'll go back to Esther. And then, of course, I've got Mustafa waiting on the line to ask a question. I'm going to get some guys to jump in here with questions and also with the DMs. So, Mike, you got the floor. Mike, did you hear those two questions?
Oh, forgive me. I thought the questions were directed at
No,
Esther.
Esther,
Uh,
I'd like to talk about, but just two quick questions for you.
okay.
You have a location, if I have a warehouse and you're not there, can I partner with you?
Sorry, can you take that again? If I have a warehouse,
If an
or
investor has got a
if
warehouse in a location where
okay.
Apex is not operating, do you guys
Yeah, sure.
can you guys partner with them? I was asking.
Absolutely, absolutely. We currently do that under a system that is called, collateral management. Essentially, we would have to come there, put our own, people or employees there to sort of certify the quantity, the capacity, and then also the quality of that warehouse. And then we essentially just put that warehouse either under an accredited AFEX warehouse or under collateral management directly.
Okay.
That sort of, yeah,
And
yeah. That
that also goes with the quality control to say, hey, because you have different farmers. So some farmers might have goods that have insects. I don't have it.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. So then let's just come back to Esther. Esther, I was gonna just basically say with this roundup, like if I am interested in the challenge, right? What do I do next? I'm interested. I want to do, say, logistics. What should I do next?
Okay, thank you so much, Kalu. I would say that if you're interested in being a part of the Code Cash Crop 4.0 Ag Hackathon, it's quite easy and simple. All you have to do is visit the website www.africaexchange.com/ccc4, and then you click on the Ag Hackathon uh, page, and everything you need to know is there, right? So more explanation on the extensions, expectations, as well as what the judges will be looking out for, and you follow the process. It's quite clear. Everything you need is there.
Gotcha.
Links,
So
yes.
just share the tweet that has those links Esther is speaking about. So if you just go to the links are all in there that Esther has spoken about, how you can register, how they want your proposal to look like.
Yes. And if let me just mention that you can of course follow any of our social media pages, because we tweet nuggets and tips often, Apex Nigeria, and of course Kenya Apex and Apex Uganda as well. And you could join our community. That's also another very great touch point to get all the information that you need. And of course the form to join the community is on the website. It's also on those pages. It's even a pinned tweet on my account, so you can go and sign up to
Follow
be a part of.
Esther, follow Esther, follow Michael, follow Apex Nigeria, get all that information. What if I win this challenge? What do I get, Esther? If I win, like I'm going to go study, is it IT or code? What do I get if I win?
Okay, so Code Cash Crop is a great platform for people who are looking to expand their deliveries or the solutions that they create into something that's very meaningful and impactful. There are several things that you could win and a lot of things you could get, but of course, I'm sure the first question, what's the money part? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so amongst the winners, there will be a $10,000 to be shared,
Dollar.
right? Yes, and a lot of other benefits, like the fact that they will be in a mentorship slash incubation system that will help them take, first of all, to even be able to deliver their presentations at the grand finale. Because right now we're in bootcamp season, right? So we are fast approaching bootcamp, the 2-day bootcamps that we'll be having at the different regions where the bootcamps will be holding. That's Kaduna and Ibadan and Nairobi, Kenya, of course. So yes, so everyone who is going to be a part of it will be injected into that system, and there's a lot of benefit to that, because you'll be getting guidance from people who are industry experts in house, professionals in different aspects, different key stakeholders in this value chain that we're trying to fix or solve for. So it's a great platform all in all. Aside from the financial benefits, being able to gather that kind of experience is
Learn.
it's something that, yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because I mean,
So from there, you might not be a winner, but you would eventually maybe meet someone, because it's also a networking platform,
very
right? We encourage everybody to communicate and talk to each other. You don't know who is going to be necessary to the growth or development of of your dreams to, do whatever it is that you want to do, or play whatever key role you want to play in the agricultural value chain, or everything in between, like in tech. So having the platform to meet other people and, communicate your interests, and also just presenting or pitching, you never know, man. That's all I can say. You never know.
Right. I mean, in Israel, I think the former PM of Israel said agriculture is 99% innovation, 1% perspiration. But if you look at what we do in Nigeria, there's a lot of hard work with this farming and a lot of hard work. People are farming with the
Yes.
tools. This is agriculture. If you're an IT guy and you are doing to create pricing for farmers, villages, you have agriculture, right? So everyone is not going to.
Yes.
So
The the fact is, every other sorry to cut you there, but the fact is, every other industry, the progress that's being made in every other industry on the surface of this planet is powered by innovation in technology. If we're being very honest, like if you look around you, the more progress a certain industry is making, whether it be fashion, whether it be cosmetics or anything, it's oftentimes powered by innovation, of course, and then technology. Because how do we maintain productivity in a world where AI is, coming fast at everyone, and you have to.
Yeah.
Yes. So with agriculture, it's the same thing. We have to have these conversations. We have to create these solutions so that that industry does not get left behind. Because every single person is going to touch. Let me say, it's going to touch everybody.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
so we all have to, exactly.
Gotcha.
So yes.
Well,
So whatever field you play, agriculture, finance, or technology, we're inviting everyone to please, be a part of this. It's the future. It's the next thing.
gotcha. Everybody come inside. We're going to round up pretty soon. I've got Mustafa. Thank you for being so patient with us, Mustafa. Mustafa is on. That former boy is also on. Let me get both of you to hop in and make your comments. Mustafa, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Kalu. Good evening, the co-hosts. It's been an interesting one. Agriculture is an interesting thing for me because I'm from the north. I've been to so many agricultural villages around here, especially in Kaduna. And I heard one of the boot camps is going to happen in Kaduna. I don't know where it's going to happen. Can she tell me that quickly, please?
What was the question?
Where is it going to happen here in Kaduna? She said one of the boot camps is in Kaduna and
yes. So we'll be having the boot camp in Kaduna at Colab. Colab is in your Kaduna Tech Innovation City, I believe. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Fine,
I would advise you to, sign up for the newsletter so you can get more up-to-date information, right?
But how do I do that? How do I do that? I've not seen anything on your timeline.
Yes, so we will definitely be tweeting out the link right now from our Apex Nigeria and Apex Kenya Apex pages, and you can also go on my profile. So it's a pinned tweet on my profile.
Okay. But even with that, I think there is one thing I've come to understand. People like us who have gone to school small, and then people who are real holder farmers, have a disconnect. Sometimes you find us that we are dreaming, we are looking at things from Western ways of doing things. This is how it's done in Europe. This is how it's done. But here in Nigeria, you see that most of our farmers are real people who don't even most of them have not gone to school. Most of them do this traditional farming, because up to today you find that in many of these villages, when they want to do maybe corn, because a lot of maize is being grown here in Kaduna and Katsina and part of this northwest. You see the variety differs, you see the farming culture differs, and everything, which affects the variety. I bought maize, I think 2 months ago. It was one of those breeds that was they call it hybrid. Then they have another one. They are all grown here, and then you see the effect on this thing. So how what are you doing, or is it part of the what could come up so that
Okay.
we would create something that will connect us between the real stakeholder farmers who are in the villages doing
Okay.
the main agricultural
Okay.
practices.
Yes, I understand. I understand your question, Mustafa. Thank you so much for asking. And um, essentially, from what I understand, you are saying that there is a disconnect between smallholder farmers and people who provide these solutions, right? Because of the westernization of so many of the processes. To be very honest with you, yes, we do see that exist, but here is where we at Apex, right, play a very key role. We try to make sure that when information is being communicated or there's information traveling from one end of the value chain, that is from our farmers, right, in Kaduna, who probably do not speak English, who have a little bit of education. There are translators. The good part about Apex is that it's not just us sitting in the offices. We also have field extension officers who are out there who go about their day-to-day activities amongst these farmers, and they live there. They're people in their communities. They're not so far out to reach. Like they live around where the warehouses are. We don't ship people from one city to another city necessarily when we need to do the work of communicating with the farmers. So for sure, we're definitely thinking about that. And to be honest, the extension based challenge also makes it's also something we're trying to use to make up for that. We're looking forward to solutions for that, because we do expect there to be translation options on these platforms to allow the farmers understand exactly what it is that is being said. We translate the English to Hausa. In the future, we translate to Fulani, we translate to Twi, we translate to any language spoken in any of the countries that this solution would be working in.
Interesting.
So I do hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, I can do English Hausa translations for you if there is any
Mustafa,
need
Of
for
course,
that
reach
service.
out. We're always welcoming experts.
thank you, Mustafa. I appreciate that. Let's get this farmer boy real quick. But Michael, before farmer boy speaks, someone is asking, does Apex also do livestock like cows, goats, livestock? Do you guys also do that, or just crops and?
No, no, sorry, we do
All
not.
right, all right. Okay, the farmer boy, you go ahead. And the farmer boy, so farmer boy, go ahead. We're talking about some issues. I hope you've been here a while. We're speaking about some issues that I think would have interested you. But you got the floor, sir. Go ahead. The farmer boy.
Yeah, Carl, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello,
You're loud and clear. Go for it.
hello,
You seem to have some issues with this mic. Yeah,
hello.
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you. Thank you very much, Carl. I came late, but from what I can just deduce from what is being discussed and from the topic, um,
Did we lose you again?
produce
I
in
think we
Nigeria,
did.
because you see, there is no point producing, and there is no point producing while you don't have people to buy from you. They are doing greatly, but honestly, I would just want to hope this as part of what they will start doing more for the farmers, because Nigeria is lagging behind when it comes to yield per hectares that we are still getting. And the only way, I have continued to say this, the only way out is through, even if you have the required seed, the weather has been favorable, even when people shout that, oh, it is the climate change, and then we still the required rain quantity to have the maximum yield of maize in Nigeria. Our major problem has been, we agriculture is not properly driven with technology. And when we talk about technology, the major technology we need is aside tractors spraying. You can hardly see anywhere in the whole of the country for commercial purpose. You can hardly see anywhere you will see a rogator, that is an agricultural machine that can spray maize at 6 weeks. And if you look at the damages armyworm is causing to us, we need company like Afex who understand the game, who understand to start in whatever capacity they can come, so that we will start having agriculture developing with technology, and even farmers can sell at any. Imagine a farmer getting up to 5 tons, 6 tons per hectare at any price he would, and he will still have a lot of money to make. But in a case we are having 1.5, that is when you see a farmer keeping the maize till when the price gets to like 200,000 per tons and the rest. So I will just give it to Apex, because you see anywhere you go, you see them. Apex is buying here, buying there. It's because they are mopping up. That is why few of us can even produce. If nobody is buying, everybody will just have to say, oh, there's no point producing. And the fact that majority of our agriculture sector is not even majority, like 90% of the agri sector is controlled by the by how do I put by not well educated farmers. So you cannot even, let's say the FMN know the numbers of tons they need, the FS know the numbers of tons, we know the numbers of maize we need to produce per year. But all these things we don't have. Everybody just do guesswork. Whatever we can buy, let's mop it up. That's what most people do these days. So I give it to Afex. They are doing greatly, and I want them to look more into agricultural mechanization and technology. Thank you.
Well, that's a good shout out for Apex, for both for you guys. He's a
Thank you so much.
yeah. Thanks. So let's just take the last one because I think he's been here and I asked him he's here. So we'll just take Obuma, and after Obuma, we'll do a roundup. We'll give our time. So Obuma, you got the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, Michael, later.
Obama, can you hear me? Obuma. All right, going once, going twice. All right, guys. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the guests that have tuned in to just listen to this conversation about agriculture. We have tried to do that intersect between finance, tech, and agriculture. We all know the problems with agriculture. Michael has given us a good line there: yield, productivity. This is a problem. Everyone in Nigeria is a farmer, but food is expensive. We've got to bring tech, we've got to bring finance in to boost yields, to get younger folks into this quote unquote line of business so that we can then start to see innovative solutions that can boost yields. Why? So that prices can come down. In the end, if prices of food does not come down, inflation doesn't come down, that means we all suffer because we can't avoid inflation. So great topic. I want to thank Apex for coming in. Esther and Michael, you've got the floor. Do you want to say your thanks? Any last parting words?
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who was a part of this space. It's really been an honor to be here. I would like to direct everyone to our Twitter and other social media pages at Afex Nigeria and of course Kenya Afex, and to visit our website www.africaexchange.com/CCC4 for information on Code Cash Crop.
Thank you so much, Esther. Right. I'm going to just also read that out so that we can get all that information. Like Esther said, it's pinned on her profile. So get the information and go register or just participate or share with someone you think knows how to do this. It's going to be a good networking and learning opportunity. Michael, you've got the floor. Any parting thoughts for us?
Thanks a lot, Kalu. Thanks a lot, Esther, and thanks everyone for joining. It was a pretty insightful conversation. Thanks for your questions too. They were, uh,
Yes, yes.
yes. But yeah, looking forward to more conversations in the future. And like Esther said, if you're on this space and you want to know more about the commodities market, you can always reach out to us. Reach out directly to Esther too, and you can also check our website. Any information that you may need, we are more than willing to provide. Thanks everyone again.
Excellent. And I think we're going to try to be on this space. We want to really track this hackathon. We want to see that who has won, how are they going towards that win, what solutions are out there. We'll try to stay on topic so that we can just, in our own way, contribute to the information space around this topic. It's a good thing to do, especially with the new focus now. The economy is, what's the word now? Getting stronger. So when I mean stronger, it's tightening the belts of the average Nigerian. So any way we can see to improve yields that can bring down the cost of food, that's going to be a savings to Nigerians, and we all need it. So we're going to stay on this topic. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in. It's the weekly spaces where we talk money, finance, and the economy with me, Kalu Aja. It's been a pleasure to host you all here. Next week, I suspect it's going to be our Sunday event. We rotated Saturdays and Sundays. So we're going to be here on Sunday next week. We'll also have another topic to talk to you guys about. Until then, guys, go enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I love and appreciate you all. Take good care of yourselves, and bye.